It's the 18th of June and I'm Tom Glasson. Welcome to The Roast. Now, Mark Carnegie, a venture capitalist, has given a speech calling for non-military national service, which includes things like mentoring and volunteer work. And you know what? In this age of consumerism and superficiality, I think it's a great way for people to reconnect with their communities because people today just don't give enough, you know?
So I can sign you up for the soup kitchen?
Tonight, I'm busy, but any other night would have been perfect.
It's tomorrow night.
Of this week, my schedule is just packed, but put me down for next time.
Next time it is.
Next time, sorry, I'm busy. Honestly, if it was any other night, I'd be there. Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. My wife's in hospital. Something about a new kid? I don't know. Tonight, renewed calls for national service and Labor debates asylum seeker policy. And by debate, I mean everyone acted like the third speaker and brought up no new arguments. First though, Mark Humphries with the headlines. I'm not ready to be a father, Gwendolyn!
Consumer group Choice says Foxtel only has itself to blame for the record number of Australians who illegally download Game of Thrones. Finally, a consumer group that stands up for criminals. Erin Turner from Choice says that Foxtel has an outdated business model, namely keeping Mike Hammond and Bill Collins in a job. She went on to explain Foxtel's flaws.
It expects people to pay for a whole range of products when they may want one. So you're getting Real Housewives of every city rather than just Game of Thrones, which you want.
But spare a thought for those people who sign up to Foxtel to watch The Real Housewives and end up paying for a critically acclaimed HBO masterpiece. Foxtel are understandably annoyed by the piracy, especially when they have to put up with these kinds of arguments.
I think he's made enough money from the books, and since he's writing two more, I don't think he needs any more money.
Was she holding a lizard with wings? Someone call the RSPCA. And speaking of animal cruelty, Japan has slaughtered 30 minke whales despite a ban on whaling from the International Court of Justice. For sake, Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, seen here reenacting his favourite scene from The Breakfast Club, had announced his intentions to resume whaling earlier this month.
I want to aim for the resumption of commercial whaling by conducting whaling research in order to obtain scientific data indispensable for the management of whale resources.
Shinzo Abe there. You might recognise him from the novel Moby Dick. He's the dick. But there must be some good scientific data you can get from harpooning a whale in the head.
Japan claims the whales it kills are used to estimate the population.
That's an interesting way to conduct a population count. Hello, I'm here for the census.
Yes?
How many residents live at the premises?
Just me.
Ah, that's very interesting. Well, thank you. Though, of course, Shinzo Abe could be legitimate about this being a population count, he is very committed to counting. Prominent public health doctors have signed a letter to the World Health Organization calling for tighter controls on e-cigarettes. Unfortunately, because the letter was written by doctors, the World Health Organization thinks the letter is about, I want to say, for those unfamiliar, are devices that electronically convert nicotine into vapor and are ideal for anyone who's ever wanted to smoke a laser pointer. The doctors are particularly worried about the lack of marketing regulations for the devices.
Their biggest concern is that if advertising and marketing are allowed for e-cigarettes, smoking will be renormalised.
Renormalised. Before you know it, kids will be eating e-fads. Coldplay, the band who rose to fame with a song about jaundice, filmed a music video in the Sydney suburb of Newtown yesterday. Hundreds of fans responded to a social media call out for extras in the hope they'll be able to watch the video frame by frame and say, "That's my elbow." The song featured in the music video, A Sky Full of Stars, can be heard on the band's new album, Coldplay, Who Gets the Kids? For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. I really hope Coldplay filmed my good elbow because this one just freaks kids out. It's just, yeah. Well, next up tonight, the Labor Party has held a debate about the offshore processing of asylum seekers and decided it will continue to support offshore processing in both Nauru and Manus Island. So it's not just taxing the very rich that has bipartisan support, it's also mistreating the really poor. The system works. And continuing its streak of being as challenging to the government as an age verification screen on an adult website, Labor passed a motion asking the government to treat asylum seekers humanely. And you know the country's in great shape when agreeing to treat people humanely is the compromise policy. Still, I'm sure those asylum seekers will appreciate being locked up indefinitely in a nice way.
Sorry about this. It's awful. I know, sorry.
I don't care whether you're at the Grand Budapest Hotel or Manus Island. If you get treated humanely, it's always a good stay. But why continue to support the Coalition's offshore processing while in opposition? Jazz Twemlow joins us now live from Parliament House. Jazz, is Labor right to be backing the government?
Absolutely, Tom. Now would be the worst time for Labor to propose something different. Usually it's best to do that right before an election to please voters, like in a bad relationship when you only really pull out all the stops for an anniversary, and then, when it's out of the way, go back to drunkenly arguing outside a pie face every weekend. But right now, so far from an election and not in power, altering your policies is like performing plastic surgery on the invisible man. No one's going to appreciate the difference. The one change Labor has suggested is Manus Island but nice, which in terms of scale is about as significant a change as putting a sock on the foot of a nude man. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Jazz. But I'm glad that Labor has finally held a vote and taken a stand on something, because on the issue of asylum seekers, they have changed their mind as often as ABC2 changes our time slot. And to help you bone up on your history of Labor's balancing act between winning votes and stopping votes, The Roast presents you now with this in-depth Walkley Award eligible retrospective.
Umming and ahhing, a brief history of Labor's asylum seeker policies.
Yeah. Wait, never mind.
Labor's identity crisis started in 2001 in the midst of the Tampa standoff. And with an election imminent, Labor supported the Coalition's extremely popular Pacific solution. Until 2007, when it became less popular, and with an election imminent, Kevin Rudd promised that Labor would be kinder to asylum seekers. But the boats came again and Labor's polls plunged. And with an election imminent, Gillard promised Labor would be tougher on asylum seekers. And they were, but not tough enough for voters. So with an election imminent, Rudd introduced Labor's new policy, which resembled the Pacific solution because it was almost exactly the Pacific solution. Now let's have a look at how often the Coalition changed their stance on asylum seekers. In 2001, they set up the Pacific solution. Then, 12 years later, they changed the name to Operation Sovereign Borders. What a bunch of flip-floppers. Which brings us to today, where it looks like the opposition have finally made their mind up. The Labor Party unequivocally support Operation Sovereign Pacific Borders solution for now.
So if you are unhappy with the Labor Party's position on asylum seekers, wait until an election is called and watch it reverse. And if you don't like that new position, then wait for another one and it will flip right back.
Do you have a legacy of flip-flopping on an issue? Why are you doing all that flippity-flap-flopping? Is it because you're pandering to voters' unfounded fears because you're a flapping flidiot? We'd flappy dappy da pappy at The Roast TV or hashtag flippity-flim-flam.
Finally tonight, there have been renewed calls to introduce compulsory national service. This latest push has been by venture capitalist Mark Carnegie, aka the Ghost Fondler, who appeared on Lateline last night to discuss his proposal for the national service. But before you all freak out, no one here is talking about national military service.
I'll say it straight down the line, it's opening up national service in our military again.
Well, no one except that soon-to-be senator with the balance of power is talking about national military service. Mr. Carnegie proposed national service without military uniforms, which doesn't mean guerrilla warfare or fighting nude like an oiled-up Spartan. It's nothing incredibly alluring like that. No, it'd just be community service, like mentoring and volunteer work. It would be done for just 1 week out of every year and would apply to all Australians, young and old, and getting oiled up would just be optional. Selection would be by a ballot that would be able to call everyone to do what is asked of them if their number comes up. Just like Charity Nam, but instead of killing Charlie, you'll be helping him clear his gutters. And if you thought war was hell, well, try volunteer work.
I'll come back, I promise.
To remember me by. I'll wait for you. You're home.
You're pregnant? Wait, what's my brother doing here?
I didn't think you'd be coming back.
What, from volunteering at the nursing home? I was gone for like a week!
You never wrote!
I texted like 9 times!
Oh yeah, no, I didn't really check my phone. I've kind of been busy banging your brother.
Yes, an important lesson there in the devastating effects of national service and having an extremely fertile brother. But of course, this isn't a new idea. Just look at the countries with the highest level of social cohesion. Your Denmark, Sweden, Norway and Finland. They all have one thing in common: amazing bone structure. But also, almost all of them have compulsory military service. So surely Mr. Carnegie's non-military option is even better.
It's balls, Tom.
It's 1 week out of the year for the needy.
Yeah, and that leaves only 51 weeks for the Nicky.
It'll help you be less selfish and focus more on other people. Who? It's a good idea. Plus, it's not even a law yet.
Yeah, it's not my law, man. I didn't ask for this stinking law.
If nothing else, it will encourage people to be good for 1 week of the year.
I will die before I help another human being.
Well, Mr. Carnegie also said there could be incentives to sweeten the deal, like reducing your HECS debt.
Okay, wait. So you're saying this program teaching me to not just think about me has got something in it for me?
That's right.
All right, Ghost Fundler. I'll let you force me to do a week of charity every couple of years to pay off a debt I myself accrued.
There you go, Nick. That's the giving spirit.
But if I have to touch the skin of one old person, I'm out of there.
Fair enough. Good night.
Oh, Tom, your wife called, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a daddy.
Oh.